Grudge addict, resentment addict, what else? Toxic thinking addict, drama addict. Let's take a look at some of the things that unforgiveness does for a person. And what I mean by unforgiveness is holding a grudge, not getting it resolved, at least with self or something. This is what it does. It creates a victim mentality. It decreases motivation and energy. And it definitely stifles creativity. And it makes inner peace and contentment damn near impossible, if not impossible. It definitely decreases empathy and the ability to connect with other people. And the worst one of all, it limits a person's support network that they could have by hanging on to unforgiveness, hanging on to grudges. Hanging on to the revenge mentality kind of thing. Victim mentality. The victim mentality is someone or something or the world has done me wrong, unjustly, and I can't let that go. Except express anger towards it over and over and over. And then by doing that, that burns up motivation and energy by having that kind of mentality. And to be able to have any inner peace and contentment, not with that stuff dinging around in the back of the mind. There could be so many good things going on in a person's life, and they won't see none of it, especially depending on how long they've held on to the grudge, the intensity of the anger they've used for it, and the resentment, the resenting of the thing, the way they've relived the anger too many times over and over, whether it's been months or years even. Anyways, it limits that support network of people that could actually help you work through it. And the reason that happens is because if a person is stuck in unforgiveness, they're not going to be letting go of anything. And it's like they're definitely going to be clinging to their victim mentality. Because basically that's what it is. It's victim mentality. It's the inability to accept what happened as happened and then figure out how to heal from it. And then once some healing has happened, and then figure out what can be done to make sure it doesn't happen again, for the most part. I mean, most of it's impossible to completely shield oneself. That's not realistic on most things, but you can greatly increase your chances of it not happening again, whatever it may have been that caused the grudge. And then finding peace with oneself and forgiving oneself. Because a lot of that anger is stemmed from actually being mad at self for whatever the betrayal or whatever it was that happened. And reconciling oneself with self first and foremost after some of the healing has happened. And then the rest of it can come into play. That right there, to reconcile with oneself, That's like if you're mad at yourself enough about something that's happened to you, whether done by a person, institutions, or religions, or IRS, whatever it may be, or just something happened in life, and you kind of blame it on God and don't even realize you're doing that, to where you're mad at God, just appalled that God would let something like that happen to you. That. So, self-reconciliation first and foremost. Forget about the forgiveness of forgiving the offender or the wrongdoer, whoever it was, the guilty parties, whoever betrayed you or did you wrong. Get that self-reconciliation first, to reconcile yourself with yourself to yourself. Come to terms that you're actually in part mad, and your trust in yourself was broken because it actually happened to you. Make that up to yourself somehow, at least in some small ways. Do some things that make it right with you, to you. Make it right with yourself, at least in a couple of small ways, first and foremost. And then figure out what kind of forgiveness you want to use for it, because if it was a betrayal, it's probably not going to be like an exoneration type forgiveness. There's exoneration, forbearance, and release. It'll probably be release. There's the three kinds. The first kind is simple things that's done wrong to you, that's easily fixed, and then the person wants to make it right with you and does, that's reconciliation. The relationship is actually made stronger. And then the second one is forbearance. And that means the relationship is actually worth saving, and you think the person is sincere and they're working on it to correct whatever was done wrong to you. And they're actively working on it, and that takes time to heal. Several months, a year, a couple years, to prove that they're not going to do it again. There's that kind. And then there's release. Release is where you can finally come to a place where you reconcile with yourself, forgive yourself, reconcile with yourself, make it up to yourself on that part, and then figure out how you put it in some kind of proper context, frame it in some kind of way to where you can say, okay, that's what it was. That's what it was. You can't change the past, and moving along somehow, and figure out how to come to a point where you don't have any revenge attitude towards it. And if you can come to that place, then you're in a place of forgiveness, and then that's when you're safe and really healed up from it and moving right along. Or also, you might not be, might still have a little bit of ill will towards that person, place, or thing, or whatever. And that's okay, as long as it's minimum and you're not expressing like hate or any intense anger. There can be a smidge of anger, then you're in the right track. You're on the right way. And you're getting safe. But to not do these things, to not get a betrayal fixed, turns into a resentment. And a resentment is it just plays over and over and over and over again. It's like a loop. And it just keeps going, keeps dinging around in the back of the mind. And that's not how the human psyche works. Our mind is built for meaning and purpose. Anything that seems senseless or meaningless, that drives us crazy. That's not how the human psyche is made. That can't be. We can't leave it like that. Leaving stuff that's meaningless or purposeless, especially when it comes to some kind of betrayal or a harm, that is just very, very, very sickening, very toxic to the human psyche. Because our brain is just constantly trying to make sense of it all and trying to function, trying to be harmonious and trying to keep us safe and keep us out of danger. And when those things aren't, if some meaning's not assigned to it and some purpose, see, a lot of that is figuring out what was the purpose, what was the real meaning behind it for them doing you wrong. See, that's part of it, inspecting that. And just because inspecting that, it may not even do it. You may go over that and go over that and go over that and study it and study it, study it and know it inside out, and still be caught in that loop of freaking wanting revenge or needing revenge. And that's why I think it's important to list out a bunch of reasons why to forgive. And depending on what it is, you could have couple hundred different reasons of why. Just start adding to that list every day. Why? Why would I want to forgive? Why would I want to forgive? Why would I want to forgive? And just keep writing it out. Just as simple as it may be, or seemingly insignificant as it may be, write it out anyway. Put it on the list. Put it on the list. Put it on the list. Look at it every day. Keep going through it. Keep going through it. And then finally the mind starts kicking in and it starts letting go and it starts going the other way. And once it starts breaking loose and it has enough reasons of why to forgive, and it starts making sense enough to where it feels like it's safe to trust again, then things will start moving pretty quickly after that. Let's look at some of these reasons of why to forgive. I think there's about 101 in this one right here. No, not about. It is 101 exactly. Because it clears the path to personal growth. Because it cultivates inner peace. Because it liberates from self-imposed limitations. Because it strengthens self-compassion. Because it fosters resilience in adversity. Because it promotes self-acceptance, because it nurtures self-confidence, because it encourages authenticity, because it releases past burdens, because it enhances emotional well-being, because it empowers self-awareness, because it encourages forgiveness of oneself, because it facilitates healing from past wounds that were probably not even related to that betrayal, but they actually get corrected in the process a little bit. It creates space for self-love. Because without that forgiveness, it's like all that dinging around in the back of the head. Most of that's mad at self for even letting it happen, or thinking you're stupid or foolish for it even happening like that. That's a big part of it. And also, the one I think is a big kicker, because it integrates a person's shadow. That means it helps a person to realize they're not nowhere near the angel that they think they are, or as good as person, and they realize they're also capable of some serious wrongdoings themselves, and they realize that they have the potential to do evil also. It promotes healthy self-expression. It encourages embracing imperfection. That's a big one. It strengthens the relationship with oneself because it supports mental and emotional balance. So, but anyways, we can go on and on with this. There's a couple more papers. I think I've got a little under 300 reasons of why to forgive, and then a short paper on reconciliation, but we're not talking about reconciliation right now. That's more reconciliation with self. That's always, always, always. That is an absolute must. Always. But as forgiving others, now we don't have to let them back in our lives if need be. And that's a highly personalized thing too, because you never know. Some person can already be hurting and have a lot of wounds open at a time, and somebody can do something that is just inappropriate. And them cuts were already sensitive and open, and then they get cut real deep by something that normally wouldn't cut a person that deep. There's that too. Human psyche is just unbelievably complex. And I think there's basically, from what I see, about 30 or so definitions of what forgiveness actually is. But as for reasons of why to forgive, I think that's highly personalized, and that could just be, I don't know. But I know anything is always better than nothing. So the CTA for today is the call to action. Ask yourself, it's like, have I truly forgiven myself and reconciled myself on anything and everything in my life so far? Is there any loose ends? Is there anything in my life where I have broken my trust with myself and I was mad at myself and thought myself stupid or foolish, but never reconciled with myself and never forgave myself and never made it up to myself somehow and just swept it under the carpet? Days go by, weeks go by, months go by, years go by. Quality of life and relationships just gets smaller and smaller. So that's the question. How well do I trust myself? Because how well do I trust myself lets me know how well I'm reconciled with myself, to myself. Do I have implicit trust to myself? Do I have unwavering trust with myself? And if so, in what areas? So anyways, have a good one. See you in the funny papers.